me get one more. Help me get one more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to my faith-based movie month, where I'm covering a selection of faith-based or faith-adjacent movies in honor of the month of Easter. Happy Easter Sunday. This video is dropping on Easter Sunday to all who celebrate He has risen. Hallelujah. And today, we're going to be continuing on with the series by taking a look at one of the better faith-adjacent films of recent years, 2016's Hacksaw Ridge. This was directed by Mel Gibson. It starred Andrew Garfield, Vince Vaughn, Hugo Weaving, and Sam Worthington, among others. And joining me for this is the holiest man that I know, is Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you?
Doing pretty good. It's always good to be on your channel talking about different movies and stuff. And yeah, Hacksaw Ridge is definitely a great movie.
Well, this movie is based on the true story of Desmond Doss, who in this movie is played by Andrew Garfield, who during World War II became a conscientious objector, for lack of a better word. Basically, he is a Seventh-day Adventist and took a vow of he's set to do no harm. And so he enters the war because he's a patriot and wants to serve. However, he only wants to serve as a medic. And considering the fact that this movie takes place during World War II, that goes about as well as you might think. However, he perseveres despite a lot of strife on his part on the US side, and does genuinely one of the greatest, most courageous acts probably in war history. He saves a lot of people. I'll just leave it at that. But Jacob, did you see this in theaters? Because I did.
Yeah, I did see this in theaters. I remember when it came out, actually back in 2016. I remember when I saw the trailer for it, I'm like, this actually looks like it has a contender for being one of the best movies of the year. That was back when I was watching new releases more regularly. And yeah, we actually went as a family. We went and saw it, and we all really loved the movie. Even watching it again, I'm like, it still holds all the punches it did when I saw it in theaters. The way Mel Gibson directs this movie, especially during the war sequences, one, they're very immersive, but then it also shows it doesn't really glamorize like the violence on screen. It's a very violent movie, but it shows how horrific war does and how it destroys people, and we see that on both sides. Some of the stuff that's shown in the movie, like limbs being severed and heads being stomped on, and bullets and blood and stuff like that. And I thought it was done very effectively. Probably about as emotionally as the opening of Saving Private Ryan. And then I think on top of that, the story in this film is probably one of the more compelling stories you have in a war film. I love the ones that are very character focused, and this is definitely one of the best ones that do that, with Desmond Doss, played here by Andrew Garfield, who has a strong moral compass. He doesn't want to go against his conscience. Obviously, I don't have a problem with what the military men do to protect the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. But the movie does a good job of making you see where Desmond is coming from because of how badly it affects his conscience with the different events in his life that made him not want to pick up a gun. You don't want people to hate you and think you're a coward, do you? You gotta go pick up the gun, do what the other people do. But then we find out more about why he does. That's like, okay, I see why you're doing this. Just a compelling drama all around. Yeah, this is just a great movie. The character writing is really good. The performances are really good. The battle sequences are well done, and it's just a great story.
It's interesting whenever I talk about Mel Gibson because, Mel Gibson to a certain group of people is still reviled for some of the things that he said. I'm not going to rehash that here. It's not the place. However, I've always maintained that he is an incredibly talented filmmaker, Apocalypto, Braveheart, among many other things. And here, to your point, one of the common complaints that I see about his films is that he just makes them bloody and violent just for the sake of doing it. But I've seen a good chunk of the movies he's directed now, and he in no way looks like he's having fun directing these. It's in the context of a battle or showing off something he's trying to hammer home. The Battle of Okinawa in this movie terrifies me in certain places, and I don't think it's exploitative in any way. That was just unfortunately what all was going on. And if you read up anything about World War II, you quickly realize it was just a sad time for humanity. And to your point also, I never got the feeling that Desmond Doss was a coward. Like, he just straight up said, I just don't want to pick up a gun. I don't want to hurt anyone. No. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, in my position, I'd be like, I'd at least carry the gun just to like give this semblance of I'm doing a job here. But even then, to him, it's like even that is the bridge too far. And he gets called a coward quite a bit, and some pretty uncomfortable scenes, Jacob. Like, there's this one, and it's not a full scene, but it's like a montage, I guess, where he gets beaten up by his fellow cadets, if you will, in the middle of the night. It's like the soap scene in Full Metal Jacket. However, it's not as drawn out, and it's like it's over quickly. And the next morning, he's got this massive black eye. Vince Vaughn is like, "Yeah, what happened to you?" And he's like, "I slipped and fell." And he doesn't want to implicate anyone, and he just doesn't want to do that. So Andrew Garfield, and I guess we can parlay into talking about his performance. I think it's some of his best work. Andrew Garfield just absolutely shines like a diamond.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield, even when he played Spider-Man back when, people were really hating on those movies, particularly Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was always in the position that it wasn't Andrew Garfield's fault that the movies were bad. He gave 100% to the role of Spider-Man. I still think he was a great Spider-Man. And it's great to see him continue to make a resurgence even to this day. I think Hacksaw Ridge helped prove that with a lot of people, because you watch this movie and you're like, this is the same guy who was Spider-Man? Like, he's speaking in a country Southern boy accent because Desmond Doss grew up in the mountains of Virginia, and he has more of a country accent here, and he plays more of a down-home, humble type guy. And like, man, he's really going all out. Like, the fact that he's British in real life, which is crazy too. But yeah, he does a great job with the humanity of Desmond Doss, where you really see where he's coming from. You see that, like you said, he's not a coward. He's just standing up for what he believes, and he doesn't like make a big facade about it. He just cannot in good conscience do the things that they want him to do. And then you go from that to the battle sequences where he actually proves his worth and does a lot and does the life saving. You get to see the full spectrum of what Andrew Garfield brings emotionally in this role. The battle scenes, like you said, I definitely agree they're not exploitive in any means. Some of them are pretty terrifying. There's I noticed at least 2 jump scares in the battle sequences, and both of them are done effectively. One of the 2 I always forget when I rewatch the movie, that there's a jump scare involving one of the dead soldiers. It's a great moment that just catches me off guard. But I love Andrew Garfield's performance. I think the scene that kind of gets me emotionally is actually where he decides to stay up on Hacksaw Ridge when all the others have retreated. There's a lot of wounded that's still up there, and he starts grabbing all these soldiers one by one, And every time he brings it down the ridge, he goes, "Please, Lord, help me find one more." He grabs one, brings it down. "Please, God, help me find one more." And then he keeps on doing it. I'm like, this is like powerful filmmaking right there. And it's I think part of that is not just a screenplay, but Andrew Garfield, who delivers in this character, his performance.
I go out of my way to rewatch that whole sequence where he's like, "Please, Lord, help me find one more." I go out of my way to watch that scene alone and just to see the whole montage of him finding one or two soldiers, bringing him back, lifting him up, and rinse, lather, repeat for what feels like hours. I don't know if it was longer or shorter than that, but it felt that way. And then how it all wraps up with the scene where he gets like a shower and like the water just dumps on him, and then just it's so cathartic how it just he goes from like zero to hero, to use a Hercules example of all things. but but that's the best way that I can describe it. And Andrew Garfield, I have a review up on the channel of both his Spider-Man films, so I'm not going to go into that here. I think those are not great movies, but I've always maintained he was the best part of those. It was not his fault, like you mentioned. He was just trying to do the best with what he could. However, he's not the only one in this movie. Vince Vaughn, I think, does some of his best work here. So does Sam Worthington. I think people just know Sam Worthington as just being in the two Avatar films, and sure enough, like that's the thing that he's known for. But here, I think he does a really great job. But my favorite character beyond Desmond Doss is his dad, Hugo Weaving. And he's like legendary in geekdom for like, he's Lord Elrond, he's V in V for Vendetta, he's Mr. Smith in the Matrix movies, or well, the first three anyway. But here, he's almost unrecognizable. And like we were talking about accents, he's got the Southern voice down. The scene in the courtroom where he goes to bat for his son and he appeals to the adjudicating general about their time in Bella Wood together, I go out of my way to rewatch that scene too, because that's the scene also where is like, even Doss's father is like, first of all, he doesn't even want his son going to the war because he lost already one son. He doesn't want to lose another. But he goes to bat for his son, and that's just a beautiful, that whole courtroom scene is just beautiful stuff.
Yeah, when I rewatched this movie, to be honest, I forgot Hugo Weaving was in the film. And then once he showed up, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's Agent Smith." And I think Hugo Weaving, I don't remember if he was ever Oscar nominated for this movie. I don't think he was, but his performance definitely was Oscar worthy, and it's crazy if he didn't. Because there's some scenes where it's like his character is so heartbreaking to watch, because you see that he's a war hero, but when you see him introduced in the film, he's an abusive father and a drunk, and you think he's going to be this horrible character in Desmond Doss's life. And he has a lot of demons to go through, and we see throughout the story that the influence that Desmond has in this whole drama, he becomes a good father by the end of the story and even sticks up for his son. And I think his dad's character arc is just as compelling as the Desmond Doss character. And I think a lot of that is because of Hugo's performance. The scene where you see his other son putting on the uniform at the dinner table, and yet Hugo Weaving is very much depressed that he's seeing his son in uniform, because it triggers back to the losses that he had because he fought in World War One. It's heartbreaking. It really is. I didn't even feel like it was Hugo Weaving. I just felt like I was seeing a depressed father reliving terrible memories. I was like, this is some good acting. This is some great stuff. And yeah, you mentioned Vince Vaughn and Sam Worthington as well. I love Vince Vaughn in this movie. His character kind of reminds me of the character Arlie Ermey plays in Full Metal Jacket. Not to the same level of craziness, but with the different insults and other things, it's like you can tell he's trying to channel what Arlie did, but in like the Vince Vaughn style, and I thought he was great in the film. And the funny thing about Sam Worthington, I remember when Hollywood tried to make him this like big Hollywood star, because he was in Avatar and he was in the Clash of the Titans remake, and people were they were trying to prop him up as the next big thing, and people were just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And yeah, I kind of felt that too, to be honest, because I don't think Sam Worthington's the greatest actor or anything. Then I'll watch him in Hacksaw Ridge, and I'm like, you know what? He's pretty good in this movie. Like, maybe I underestimated Sam Worthington. I think he's actually really good here, the character he plays.
So, just a couple things. I fact checked. Hugo Weaving was not nominated for either Best Actor or Supporting Actor, which is
Oh,
a shame. A shame on both fronts.
yeah.
And then
Was Andrew Garfield nominated?
he was not. Which I mean,
Oh,
just
wow.
Academy. Like, what are we doing here? But I
I
digress.
know it was nominated for Best Picture, and wasn't Mel Gibson nominated for Best Director?
I will check. I'm pretty sure he was not. But let me just double check. I know it said on the Wikipedia that it got 6 nominations. So let me just
Yeah, I remember it being nominated for Best Picture.
Best Picture, it won for Best Sound Mixing and Film Editing.
Okay.
And it does not mention Mel Gibson for director, which
He wasn't
unfortunately
nominated.
does make a lot of sense considering the history there. And another thing
Yeah.
before we move on, Sam Worthington, known primarily for Avatar, but he's gotten steady work throughout up until like just recently. He was in Horizon and American Saga, the Kevin Costner Western, and he was also in The Exorcism, which is a Russell Crowe movie. So he's getting work, and he's still kicking around out there. But the Avatar movies are just such a big deal that people are like, oh, the Avatar guy. But he's been in other things. I suppose that is my point.
Yeah. And also, I mentioned Teresa Palmer as well, who is the love interest of Desmond Doss. I like the love story that's set up in the first third of the movie and how that goes into play later on. She was an actress I remember seeing in movies growing up. Primarily, she was and I don't know if you remember the Sorcerer's Apprentice movie that came out back in 2010 with Nicolas Cage and Jay Baruchel. She was the love interest in that movie.
Oh, that is right. Yeah, she was the girl that hosted the radio show that 3 people listened to. Her words, not mine.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one. And yeah. And again, it's one of those cases where like she didn't really I didn't think she was that impressive of an actress if you just watch that movie, but then you watch Hacksaw Ridge and you're like, I don't know if it's the way Mel Gibson directs his actors, but she did a really good job in that movie.
Yeah, she was really good. And just there's just like, even in his darkest days, his being Desmond's, like when he's like in military jail, like he's pretty much about to be drummed out, she never leaves his side. And I just love that. I love the spirit of that.
Yeah.
Now, as far as this movie being like Desmond Doss is a Seventh-day Adventist, I am far from an expert on that particular sect, I guess. So I'm not going to dive.
I don't know much about it either. I think the only things I know is their worship day they contend is Saturday and not Sunday, because they're hung up on that, and they don't believe in they don't believe in eating meat because they they rely on some of the stuff under the old law system, under the Old Testament, which is which we're not under anymore. But that's a different story for another day.
Yeah, that's a can of worms that I am not equipped to talk about.
But yeah, it does dive into it. It's not like explicitly shown, like as far as the faith aspect of it, but you still see the convictions. Like the reason why he doesn't want to carry a gun is based on what he was raised to believe and how that affects his conscience. And that's, I guess, the key part of the faith-based aspect of the story.
I agree. And it's I think with Mel Gibson, when people think like faith-based and Mel Gibson, their mind immediately goes to Passion of the Christ, which I will be the
Yeah.
first to admit I have not seen. I've seen clips, but
Oh,
I've never seen the whole thing. I almost did it for this month, but I was like, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. I think I want to do this again next year, so I think I'll just put a pin in that for next year.
Yeah, I will say the Passion of the Christ. I know it's divisive among people. I think it's really good. It's a hard one to revisit though, because it's definitely one of the most brutal movies you'll ever watch. Because it goes into whole detail showing the brutality of Christ's crucifixion and how far he was willing to do the things that he did for all man. And it is pretty emotional to watch. But I think some people think they went too far with it. I think Mel Gibson did as respectful of a job to show, you know, the Son of God did all that for me.
Exactly.
And
And if you look even an inch into ancient Roman history, even like outside of religion, like secular history, it was brutal back then. Like the punishments were
yeah,
just terrible. Like if you read even a little bit into it. So like if you treat the story with kid gloves, then you're going to get people complaining about that. And so I
yeah,
think the
it's one of
point
the things
I'm
I
trying
respect about the Prince of Egypt because the Prince of Egypt still kept all the things that I think most people would shy away from and trying to tell Moses for kids, but they kept all that in there, the slavery and the child killings and all of that.
yeah, literally one of the first scenes is Pharaoh killing off the firstborns. So for DreamWorks, and I promise this is not a plug for our show discussing DreamWorks. We're going somewhere with this. Point is that you can talk about touchy things like this as long as you do it with respect. And I think my point is that Mel Gibson, especially in the case of Hacksaw Ridge, I think approaches this story in about as respectful a manner as you can possibly get. I mean, Desmond Doss is a hero. Let's not get that twisted.
Yeah, absolutely.
He never fired a shot, and yet he got a Medal of Honor. Like that's hero stuff right there.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that he did all those things, saved all those lives, and yet never fired a gun is incredible in itself. They have like a montage of his real life at the end. And it said in the credits he was the first conscientious objector, I can talk, to receive a Medal of Honor. That's incredible. And I give the guy utmost respect for that.
Yeah. But as far as this movie goes, I'm giving it on my scale an amazing grade. It's underrated in terms of Mel Gibson's filmography, I feel like, because when you talk about Mel Gibson as a director, you go to like Passion of the Christ and Braveheart and then the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked about Apocalypto earlier this year, and I still love that movie to pieces. And I love this movie even more, like just as much, but for different reasons. And I've seen Flight Risk, and it was a marked step down in quality for Gibson. It was okay, but I still think that Mel Gibson is a very good director. And I feel like when he gets something he's really passionate about and he can sink his teeth into, he's one of the best around.
Yeah, I've enjoyed all his work. I've not seen Apocalypto. I can't vouch for that one, but the ones I've seen directing wise, this Passion of the Christ and Braveheart, he's really good at what he does. And I think of the three, Hacksaw Ridge, well, I've seen it the most times, and I think because I love the story so much, it's my favorite of the three.
Absolutely. Well, I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of Hacksaw Ridge if you have seen it? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And Jacob, thank you so much for coming back on the channel to talk about this one. I was so happy I could get you on to talk about a movie this month. Now, this is going up Easter Sunday, so it's already happened. But as we're recording this over on your channel, we're going to be live talking about Trolls, the first Trolls movie for Discussing DreamWorks. And I
Yeah,
just,
we got.
and I'm in the midst of rewatching it now. I had to pause it, and I don't hate it, but I get why people don't like it, and I'm just
Oh,
going to leave it at that.
all right, that's good to hear that because Henry Mockingbird's going to be on that too, and he despises that movie.
Oh, that's going to be very interesting when we get there.
Yeah,
But it will have
it'll be.
already happened by the time this video drops. But if you want to watch the edited or not the edited, but the on-demand version, I guess, go over to Jacob's channel. It's linked below. Jacob, other than Trolls, though, what do you have coming up?
I think as far as that, other stuff, um, I know also me and Henry Mockingbird, speaking of him, we do Discussing DreamWorks every month. Our April review will be on Bartok the Magnificent, which was a direct-to-video spinoff of Anastasia. So we'll be covering that one. I'm hoping next week, but I need to talk to him about that. And then we, I'm also started a series where me, Ryan, and Flett, and occasionally Henry will be going through Michael Bay's movies. We did Bad Boys last month, and I'm hoping soon we'll be doing our review of The Rock, which is one of my favorite Michael Bay movies. So I'm excited to cover that one as well. There's also some music stuff that I do on the channel as well. Ryan's on my channel to talk about Leonard Skinner, and we got more reviews coming down the pipeline there. I think on your channel we just finished Nirvana, and at some point we're starting Pink Floyd.
Yes, so that's going to be coming up very soon. But go give Jacob a subscribe. He does indeed deserve it. As far as this channel goes, in terms of faith-based movie month, I'll be wrapping up the month by taking a look at another recent one, and I'll be taking a look at the life of St. Paul. It is Paul, the Apostle of Christ. But for Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. Y'all take care.